There is a quiet moment that comes to many people, often without warning. It happens in the space between thoughts, sometimes late at night, sometimes while staring out of a window, sometimes after a long day when the body is tired but the mind refuses to rest. In that moment, a strange realization begins to form. You notice that your mind feels loud, restless, almost crowded. Thoughts appear one after another, replaying memories, predicting problems, analyzing conversations, worrying about futures that haven't arrived. And suddenly a question arises, not as words, but as a feeling. Is this how the mind is supposed to be? Or has something gone wrong? For centuries, people assumed that the mind was fixed, that the personality you were born with was the one you had to live with forever. If you were anxious by nature. If you were easily distracted, that was just who you were. If you carried emotional pain, it was your burden to manage. But something remarkable has been quietly unfolding in modern science, something that echoes words spoken by the Buddha more than 2,500 years ago. The mind is not fixed. The brain is not static. What you repeatedly think, feel, and focus on physically reshapes your brain. And meditation, once considered purely spiritual, has now been shown to be one of the most powerful tools for changing the brain itself. Harvard researchers did not set out to prove ancient wisdom. They were simply studying stress, attention, and emotional regulation. Yet what they discovered felt almost poetic. After just weeks of meditation practice, measurable changes appeared in the brain. Areas linked to memory, emotional balance, and self-awareness grew stronger. Regions associated with fear, stress, and anxiety became quieter. The brain was literally rewiring itself, responding not to medication, not to external force, but to stillness, attention, and awareness. Long before brain scanners existed, the Buddha described this process in a different language. He said the mind becomes what it repeatedly contemplates. What neuroscience now shows with images and data, Buddha described through direct inner observation. Imagine the brain like a forest. Every thought you think is a path you walk. The more you walk a path, the clearer it becomes. Anxiety is not just a feeling, it is a deeply worn trail in the mind. Calm, for many people, is a path rarely visited, overgrown and unfamiliar. Meditation does not force the mind to stop thinking. Instead, it gently introduces you to new paths. Each moment of awareness, each breath observed without judgment, begins to soften the old trails and strengthen new ones. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes natural. What once felt impossible becomes familiar. The Buddha taught that suffering is not caused by the world itself, but by the way the mind reacts to it. This was not philosophy for him. It was a direct observation of human experience. Modern psychology now echoes this understanding. Stress is not only about external pressure, but about internal interpretation. Two people can face the same situation, yet experience it completely differently. One feels overwhelmed, the other feels challenged. The difference lies in the mind's conditioning. Meditation slowly loosens this conditioning, allowing space between stimulus and response. In that space, freedom begins to appear. Harvard studies revealed something quietly revolutionary. When people practiced mindfulness meditation, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, became less reactive. This did not mean fear disappeared, but it no longer dominated experience. The prefrontal cortex, the area associated with clarity, decision-making, and emotional regulation, became stronger. This shift explains why long-term meditators often respond calmly in situations that once triggered panic or anger. They are not suppressing emotion. Their brains are simply wired differently. The Buddha described this state as equanimity, a balanced mind that is present without being disturbed. He did not teach meditation as an escape from life, but as a way to meet life more fully. Sitting in silence was never the goal. Seeing clearly was. Modern neuroscience now shows that clarity is not just a concept, it has a physical signature in the brain. Attention strengthens neural circuits. Awareness reduces unnecessary reactivity. Compassion activates regions linked to connection and well-being. At first, meditation can feel uncomfortable. The mind resists stillness. Thoughts become louder, not quieter. Many people believe they are doing it wrong because their mind won't stop. But this resistance itself is part of the process. The Buddha taught that observing restlessness without judgment is already meditation. Harvard researchers noticed the same thing. Participants often reported increased awareness of thoughts before they experienced calm. This awareness is not failure, it is the beginning of transformation. You cannot change what you cannot see. There is a subtle but profound shift that happens when someone realizes their thoughts are events, not commands. The moment you notice a thought without automatically believing it, something changes. The thought loses its grip. This is not suppression, it is understanding. The Buddha called this insight. Neuroscience calls it metacognition, the ability to observe the mind from a higher perspective. Different languages, same experience. The health benefits that follow are not accidental. Reduced stress lowers inflammation in the body. Improved emotional regulation supports heart health. Better sleep strengthens immune function. Meditation does not work by magic. It works by aligning the nervous system with balance. When the mind stops living in constant threat mode, the body finally receives permission to heal. This is why ancient monks and modern doctors often speak the same truth from different directions. The most beautiful part of this journey is that nothing needs to be added to you. You are not broken. You do not need to become someone else. Meditation reveals what is already present beneath layers of habit and fear. The Buddha taught that peace is not something you acquire, it is something you uncover. Harvard's findings simply show that the brain responds when peace is practiced. As awareness deepens, something unexpected happens. You begin to notice the spaces between thoughts. In those spaces, there is no anxiety, no regret, no anticipation, just presence. At first, these moments are brief, like sunlight through clouds, but with practice, they expand. The brain learns this state. Neural pathways strengthen. Calm becomes familiar. The mind begins to trust silence. This is where science and spirituality meet without conflict. One speaks of neurons and gray matter, the other of mindfulness and wisdom, but both point to the same truth. You are not trapped inside your mind, you are shaping it every moment, whether consciously or unconsciously. Meditation simply hands you the steering wheel. By the end of this journey, what once felt mystical will feel practical. What once felt distant will feel personal. This is not about becoming passive or detached. It is about becoming deeply alive, responsive without being reactive, present without being overwhelmed. The Buddha did not promise a life without challenges. He promised a mind that could meet them with clarity. And as we move deeper into this exploration, we will see how these changes unfold over time, how the brain learns safety, how emotional wounds begin to soften, and how a practice that requires no equipment, no belief, and no external authority quietly becomes one of the most powerful tools for healing ever discovered. As the practice deepens, something subtle yet powerful begins to unfold beneath conscious awareness. It is not dramatic at first. There are no sudden visions, no instant disappearance of problems. Instead, there is a quiet re-education happening inside the body itself. The nervous system, which for years may have been living in a state of quiet alert or constant tension, slowly begins to understand a new message. It learns that this moment is safe. Modern neuroscience now understands that much of human suffering is not created by present danger, but by a nervous system trained to expect threat. Trauma, chronic stress, unresolved emotional pain, even repeated social pressures leave an imprint on the brain and body. The sympathetic nervous system stays activated far longer than necessary. Cortisol and adrenaline circulate even when there is no immediate reason. Over time, this constant internal alarm shapes how the brain perceives reality. Neutral events begin to feel threatening. Silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels unsafe. Harvard researchers noticed that consistent meditation practice begins to regulate the autonomic nervous system. The parasympathetic response, often called the rest and digest state, becomes more accessible. Breathing slows naturally. Heart rate variability improves. These are not abstract concepts, they are measurable signs that the body is learning balance. When the body feels safe, the mind follows. At first, many people feel emotional waves rise during meditation. Old sadness, unexplained fear, restlessness, even irritation surface without obvious cause. This can be confusing. Some assume meditation is making things worse. In truth, awareness is simply revealing what was already there. The Buddha described this as purification, not in a moral sense, but in a psychological one. What has been suppressed begins to release when the mind no longer runs away from itself. Neuroscience supports this understanding. The brain stores emotional memory, not just as images or thoughts, but as bodily sensations. The insula, a region involved in interoception, becomes more active with meditation. This means people begin to feel their inner state more clearly. They notice tension earlier. They recognize emotional shifts before they become overwhelming. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates freedom. One of the most profound findings from meditation research is its effect on the default mode network, the brain system responsible for mind-wandering, self-referential thinking, and rumination. This network is active when the mind is not focused on a task, often replaying the past or rehearsing the future. Excessive activity here is strongly linked to anxiety and depression. Meditation quiets this network, not by force, but by redirecting attention to direct experience. The Buddha described this as seeing things as they are, rather than as stories about oneself. When the mind is no longer constantly narrating life, something spacious opens. The sense of a rigid, anxious self softens. You begin to experience thoughts as passing events rather than defining truths. This is not detachment from life, it is intimacy without entanglement. Over time, meditators often report that emotional reactions lose their sharp edges. Anger still arises, but it dissolves faster. Fear still appears, but it no longer controls behavior. Sadness may visit, but it does not define identity. The brain has learned that emotions are temporary. This learning happens not through analysis, but through repeated direct experience. Each time a sensation is observed without resistance, the brain updates its predictions. This is how rewiring occurs. Harvard studies also show increased thickness in the hippocampus, an area linked to learning, memory, and emotional regulation. Chronic stress is known to shrink this region. Meditation appears to reverse that effect. This helps explain why people often feel clearer, more emotionally stable, and more resilient after sustained practice. The brain is literally recovering from years of overload. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering. Modern psychology reframes this as attachment to emotional states and identity narratives. Meditation weakens this attachment, not by suppressing feeling, but by allowing it to move freely. When emotions are allowed to arise and pass without resistance, they complete their natural cycle. The nervous system no longer needs to hold them in place. This has profound implications for trauma healing. Trauma is not just what happened, but what the nervous system could not process at the time. Meditation, especially when practiced gently and consistently, creates conditions where unfinished emotional responses can resolve. This is why many therapists now integrate mindfulness into trauma-informed care. The practice teaches the body that it can experience sensation without being overwhelmed. The Buddha emphasized gentleness in practice. He warned against forcing the mind, comparing it to tuning a stringed instrument. Too tight, and it breaks. Too loose, and it makes no sound. This wisdom aligns perfectly with modern understanding of nervous system regulation. Healing does not come from pressure, it comes from safety. As safety grows, compassion naturally follows. Harvard researchers observed increased activity in brain regions associated with empathy and kindness in long-term meditators. This is not because meditation teaches people to be morally superior, but because when the mind is less consumed by threat, it has more capacity for connection. Compassion is not a virtue imposed from above. It is a natural response of a regulated nervous system. The Buddha taught loving-kindness meditation as a direct path to liberation, not because it feels pleasant, but because it dissolves the illusion of separation. Neuroscience now shows that compassion practices activate reward pathways and reduce stress markers. When you genuinely wish well for yourself and others, the brain responds as if receiving care. Slowly, the sense of fighting life begins to fade. Challenges still arise, but they are no longer interpreted as personal failures or existential threats. The mind learns flexibility, the body learns rest. This does not make a person passive. It makes them responsive with clarity rather than reaction. As meditation reshapes emotional regulation, it also begins to influence identity itself. People often report feeling less trapped by old labels. They are no longer just anxious, just angry, just broken. They experience themselves as awareness in which experiences occur. The Buddha called this insight into non-self, not meaning that nothing exists, but that identity is fluid rather than fixed. This realization is deeply healing. When identity loosens, shame loses its grip. Guilt softens. The inner critic quiets. Harvard's findings suggest that reduced self-referential processing plays a key role in mental well-being. When life is no longer filtered through constant self-judgment, peace becomes possible even in imperfect conditions. The nervous system, once trained for survival, begins to support growth. Sleep improves. Digestion becomes more balanced. Chronic pain often decreases as muscle tension releases. These changes are not placebo effects. They are physiological responses to reduced stress and improved neural regulation. The Buddha never separated mind and body. He taught that awareness of breath, posture, sensation, and thought were all part of the same path. Modern science now confirms what he observed directly. The mind is embodied. Change the way attention moves, and the entire system responds. As this transformation continues, something even deeper begins to emerge. Beyond calm, beyond emotional balance, there is a quiet joy that does not depend on circumstances. Not excitement, not pleasure, but a gentle sense of okayness. This joy arises not because life is perfect, but because the mind is no longer at war with itself. And this is only the beginning. As we move into the next part of this journey, we will explore how meditation reshapes perception itself, how attention becomes sharper, intuition clearer, and how the brain begins to experience reality with a freshness often lost after childhood. This is where wisdom deepens, and where Buddha's insights into awareness and awakening align even more precisely with modern neuroscience. There comes a point in meditation where the shift is no longer just emotional or physical. Something deeper begins to reorganize. The way the world is perceived starts to change, quietly, gently, almost without announcement. Colors seem a little more vivid. Sounds feel closer, more textured. Ordinary moments carry a strange sense of presence, as if life is being experienced for the first time again. This is not imagination. It is perception refining itself. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is not a passive receiver of reality. It is an active prediction machine, constantly filling in gaps based on past experience. Most of what we see, hear, and feel is shaped by expectation. The mind overlays the present moment with memories, labels, and assumptions. This is efficient for survival, but costly for awareness. Over time, life becomes familiar, predictable, and dull, not because it is uninteresting, but because the brain has stopped truly seeing it. The Buddha described this as living in delusion, not in a judgmental sense, but in the sense of not seeing clearly. He taught that people rarely experience reality directly. They experience their thoughts about reality. Meditation interrupts this automatic filtering. By bringing attention repeatedly to immediate experience, the brain is trained to rely less on prediction and more on presence. Modern neuroscience supports this. Studies show that mindfulness reduces top-down processing and increases sensory clarity. As attention stabilizes, the prefrontal cortex and sensory regions begin to communicate more efficiently. This creates a sense of vividness without effort. The world feels more real, not because it has changed, but because the mind has stopped dulling it. Many meditators report that simple activities like walking, eating, or breathing become deeply satisfying. This is not because they are trying to enjoy them, but because they are finally fully there. The Buddha called this mindfulness, but its deeper function is wisdom. When perception becomes clear, the nature of experience reveals itself. Thoughts are seen arising and passing, sensations appear and dissolve. Even emotions are experienced as movements rather than solid identities. This understanding is not intellectual. It is experiential, and once seen, it cannot be unseen. Harvard's research into attention shows that meditation improves cognitive flexibility. This means the brain becomes better at shifting perspective. Problems are no longer approached from a single rigid angle. Creativity increases. Insight arises more easily. This is why many artists, scientists, and leaders incorporate meditation into their lives. It sharpens perception without narrowing it. As perception refines, reactivity continues to soften. The mind no longer rushes to judge every experience as good or bad. There is a growing capacity to stay with what is happening, even when it is uncomfortable. This capacity is not numbness, it is strength. The Buddha taught that wisdom is the ability to remain present without clinging or aversion. Neuroscience now recognizes this as emotional resilience rooted in attentional stability. One of the most profound changes that occurs at this stage is the loosening of time. The past and future still exist as concepts, but they no longer dominate experience. The mind rests more often in the now. This has measurable effects on stress and well-being. When the brain is not constantly projecting forward or backward, it conserves energy. Presence becomes efficient. Meditators often describe moments where the sense of a separate observer fades. There is just seeing, just hearing, just breathing. The usual sense of me doing the experience softens. This can feel unfamiliar, even surprising. The Buddha described this as an insight into non-self. Neuroscience frames it as reduced activity in brain networks responsible for self-referential processing. Different explanations, same experience. This shift does not erase individuality or personality. It simply reduces the feeling of being trapped inside a story. When the self becomes more fluid, life feels lighter. Mistakes are no longer catastrophic. Success is no longer identity-defining. The mind gains room to move. As perception opens, intuition begins to sharpen. Decisions feel clearer, less forced. This is not mystical prediction, it is clarity arising from reduced mental noise. When the mind is quiet, subtle information becomes noticeable. Body signals are heard earlier. Emotional cues are recognized before they escalate. This leads to wiser choices, not because of analysis, but because of attunement. The Buddha taught that wisdom naturally arises from sustained attention. You do not need to chase insight, it comes when the mind is ready. Harvard's findings support this by showing that meditation enhances connectivity between brain regions involved in awareness, emotion, and reasoning. The brain becomes more integrated. Inner conflict reduces. As integration deepens, compassion continues to expand. When perception is clear, it becomes obvious that others are shaped by causes and conditions just like you. Anger softens into understanding. Judgment gives way to curiosity. This is not moral superiority, it is clarity. The Buddha taught that understanding ends hatred. Neuroscience now shows that empathy increases when the brain is less defensive. Even pain begins to change. Physical discomfort may still arise, but the suffering around it decreases. Studies show that meditators experience pain with less emotional distress, even when intensity remains the same. This is because the brain distinguishes sensation from interpretation. Pain is no longer amplified by fear or resistance. This insight alone has transformed chronic pain management. Life begins to feel less like something to survive and more like something to participate in. Attention is no longer scattered across worries and regrets. It gathers naturally in the present. This creates a quiet joy that does not depend on outcomes. The Buddha described this as contentment, not because everything is perfect, but because the mind is no longer demanding perfection. As wisdom matures, there is a growing trust in experience itself. You no longer need to control every outcome. You learn to respond rather than react. This trust reduces anxiety at a fundamental level. The brain no longer needs to constantly predict disaster. It learns that it can meet whatever arises. Neuroscience shows that this trust corresponds with improved regulation between emotional and rational brain regions. The mind becomes less fragmented. Thoughts, feelings, and sensations work together rather than against each other. This integration is one of the clearest markers of mental health. The Buddha did not promise a life free from uncertainty. He taught a mind free from confusion. Meditation is the path by which this freedom unfolds, not through belief, but through direct seeing. Harvard's research simply confirms that the brain responds when awareness is cultivated. As perception continues to open, something even more subtle begins to appear. A sense that peace is not something added to life, but something revealed when the mind stops interfering. This peace is not passive. It is alive, alert, and deeply responsive. In the final part of this journey, we will explore how this transformation matures into wisdom in daily life, how meditation reshapes relationships, purpose, and meaning, and how the ancient path described by the Buddha becomes fully alive in modern living. This is where inner change meets outer expression. There is a moment in every deep practice when the question quietly shifts. At first, meditation feels like something you do. You sit, you breathe, you observe, you return. But over time, something changes. The practice no longer feels separate from life. Awareness begins to move with you into conversations, into decisions, into moments of difficulty and joy. Meditation stops being an activity and becomes a way of meeting reality. The Buddha never taught meditation as an escape from the world. He taught it as a preparation to live within it with clarity and compassion. Modern neuroscience now reflects this truth in its own language. As the brain becomes more integrated, behavior naturally changes, not because of discipline or willpower, but because perception itself has matured. When you see clearly, you act wisely. Harvard researchers observed that long-term meditators show greater emotional stability in real-life situations, not just in laboratory settings. Stressful events still trigger responses, but recovery happens faster. The nervous system no longer remains stuck in alarm. This ability to return to balance is one of the strongest predictors of mental and physical health. It is not the absence of stress that matters, but the speed at which the system can reset. As this capacity grows, relationships begin to transform. When the mind is less reactive, listening becomes deeper. Conversations feel less like battles to be won and more like spaces to understand. The urge to defend, explain, or control softens. Compassion becomes practical. The Buddha taught that right speech arises naturally from right awareness. Neuroscience shows that reduced emotional reactivity improves social cognition and empathy. Conflicts still arise, but they are no longer fueled by unconscious patterns. You begin to notice emotional reactions as they form, and in that noticing, they lose momentum. This creates room for choice. You may still speak firmly, but without cruelty. You may still set boundaries, but without resentment. This is wisdom in action. Purpose also begins to change. Many people live driven by fear, comparison, or the need for validation. Meditation gently exposes these motivations without judgment. As awareness deepens, a quieter question emerges. What truly matters? The Buddha taught that craving leads to dissatisfaction, not because desire is wrong, but because it is endless when driven by identity. When awareness replaces compulsion, purpose becomes simpler and more aligned. Harvard's research into well-being supports this shift. People who meditate regularly often report a deeper sense of meaning that is not tied to achievement. Their satisfaction comes from presence, contribution, and connection, rather than constant striving. This does not make them less ambitious. It makes their ambition healthier. The brain, once trained to chase reward and avoid discomfort at all costs, learns a new balance. Dopamine-driven seeking gives way to steady contentment. This has profound health implications. Chronic stress weakens immunity, disrupts sleep, and accelerates aging. Meditation reverses many of these effects by restoring nervous system balance. This is not speculation, it is measurable change. The Buddha spoke of the middle way, a path that avoids extremes. Modern health science echoes this principle. Balance is the foundation of resilience. Meditation trains the brain to recognize when it is tipping into excess, whether of effort, emotion, or expectation. This self-regulation supports long-term well-being. As wisdom matures, fear of uncertainty begins to loosen. Life is no longer approached as a problem to be solved, but as a process to be experienced. This does not mean passivity, it means engagement without anxiety. The brain no longer demands guarantees before allowing peace. This shift alone can feel like a liberation. Many meditators describe a growing sense of gratitude that arises spontaneously. Not forced positivity, but appreciation rooted in presence. Simple moments carry weight. Ordinary days feel complete. The Buddha taught that joy is found in simplicity. Neuroscience now shows that gratitude activates brain regions associated with emotional balance and reduces stress hormones. Even the relationship with pain and aging changes. Instead of resisting what is inevitable, the mind learns to meet change with dignity. This reduces suffering dramatically. Studies show that acceptance-based practices improve quality of life even in chronic illness. The Buddha's teachings on impermanence were never meant to depress, but to free. When change is accepted, fear loses its grip. At this stage, meditation is no longer about improvement. It is about intimacy with life. The need to fix oneself dissolves. You begin to trust the unfolding of experience. This trust is not naive. It is grounded in the understanding that awareness can meet whatever arises. The most beautiful aspect of this transformation is its quietness. There is no need to announce it. Others may notice you are calmer, more present, more grounded, or they may not. Either way, the change is real. The brain has learned a new way of being. The mind has remembered its natural state. The Buddha described enlightenment not as something mystical added to a person, but as the ending of unnecessary suffering. Harvard's findings suggest that the brain, when trained through meditation, naturally moves toward this direction. Not perfection, but clarity. Not constant happiness, but deep peace. And this path is not reserved for monks or scholars. It is available to anyone willing to sit, to observe, to return again and again to awareness. You do not need belief. You do not need to change your life. You simply need to pay attention. The brain will do the rest. As this journey comes to a close, remember that what you have heard is not theory. It is an invitation to discover, through your own experience, what the Buddha pointed to and what modern science now confirms. That your mind is not your enemy, that peace is not distant, that healing is possible. If this message resonated with you, if you felt something settle or open as you listened, consider staying connected. Subscribe to Divine and Spiritual 0369, where ancient wisdom meets modern science, and where each journey is designed to guide you gently toward clarity, balance, and inner peace. Until we meet again, breathe gently, live consciously, and trust the quiet intelligence within you.